And once again, welcome back to Philly Sports Spotlight. Tonight we've been focusing on the Tour de France, which celebrated recently its 100th race, actually this past weekend. Unfortunately, it's an event that through the years has been plagued with all that's wrong with sports, which brings us to the story of Englishman Tom Simpson, one of only 3 riders to actually die while competing in the race. Francis Cepeda and Fabio Casartelli each died from head injuries following their respective accidents. Simpson's passing, however, more self-inflicted.
At the beginning of 1967, it seemed that Tom Simpson looked set for a good year's racing. In April, he won Paris-Nice, the first big stage race of the cycling calendar, an early indicator of form. But all roads, all races led to the Tour de France in July. This was the big one.
It's always been the toughest event in cycling because of its length and the length of the stages, the fact that you have to do it for 22 days, 25 days on the trot. And because of that, it's always been the most coveted prize in cycling.
Simpson had no doubt that history would look more favourably on a rider who did well on the Tour. The Tour de France in the 60s was a particularly demanding affair. The race was now faster than ever with better roads and better bikes. But with 22 stages lasting 4,000 kilometres, it was 1,000 kilometres longer than today's Tour.
So you've got 3 weeks, day in, day out, over the Alps, over the Pyrenees, rain, snow, wind, the whole lot.
Tom Simpson approached the 1967 Tour with a specific strategy for victory.
Tom had gone into the 67 Tour with a plan to finish either in the top 3 or take the yellow jersey and hold it for a few stages. He knew there were several key stages of the race where the overall standings of the race would be decided. He had decided to target these 3 or 4 stages. There was one in the Alps, there was the Ventoux, there was one in the Pyrenees, and there was the final time trial.
To win the Tour, you have to do well in its demanding mountain stages. But during the first challenge Simpson gave himself, passing through the Alps on the 11th stage, he fell ill.
He really suffered, and we basically carried him up the stairs to his bedroom. He didn't want to eat, but we forced him down. I said, well, Tom, eat some soup. And he said, I just feel ill, you know, I don't want to eat. So we forced him to have some soup, and then straight away went into the toilets, into the gents, and he was sick.
Aside from personal or patriotic glory, there was another pressure to perform which drove Simpson on during the 1967 Tour. This was the promise of a new contract with an Italian trade team. The size of the new contract depended on how he now performed.
He needed the high placing in the Tour, i.e. to finish well overall or wear the yellow jersey and make a big impression. He needed that to, if you like, get the money he wanted out of Salvarani so that he could finish his career with financial security.
It's like playing at Wimbledon. If you don't perform, then your contract is decided accordingly. So there was this sublime pressure on Tom to do well, and I think that manifests itself on the stages of the Ventoux.
So despite the illness, Simpson had little choice but to get back on his bike to ride the next stage to Marseille. During this 12th stage, he recovered enough to move up from 16th to 7th, within striking distance of the Tour's leaders. With news that Tom was in bad shape after the 11th stage in the Alps, his trade team director, Gaston Plot, arrived in Marseille to tell Tom to stop racing.
Gaston Plot, comme tout le monde, aimait profondément Tom. Et il lui a demandé, et devant témoin, il a dit, Tom, tu devrais arrêter. Moi, je ne suis pas ton directeur maintenant, mais tu devrais arrêter le Tour de France. Franchement, pour ta santé, ça n'est pas bon.
Plot also had another worry. He knew that Tom, if necessary, would resort to illegal stimulants to cope with the demands of the Ventoux. What Simpson revealed on the starting line to journalist and former cyclist Jean Bobet confirmed Plau's fears.
J'aime beaucoup Tom, mais sa dernière grimace, c'était pas un regard, sa dernière grimace a été terrible. Il m'a tiré la langue, et sur la langue, j'ai vu 5 pastilles. C'était 5 pastilles, certainement, de Tonédron, puisque c'était l'un de ses médicaments préférés.
On the 13th of July, on the 13th stage of the 1967 Tour, Simpson is in pursuit of victory. He climbs through the parched landscape of the Mont Ventoux to reach its summit.
It was awesome. And as you got closer and closer to it, you realised that, hey, this is going to be something else.
It's suffocatingly hot. Because of the altitude, riders can barely breathe.
It was just sheer hell on wheels.
It was nearly the end of the 13th day of the Tour de France grueling cycle race.
To survive the pain and suffering this day, Simpson has resorted to illegal drugs.
He was given oxygen.
Near the summit of the mountain, he collapses.
The more I climbed towards him, the more I became to realise it looked very serious.
Like a case of sun stress. Temperatures over France this week and today have been in the upper 90s Fahrenheit.
Tom Simpson has ridden himself to death. How could this have happened? How could the life of the miner's son who conquered continental cycling have ended like this?
I went to bed that night and slept, and I woke up the following day and I just thought I'd had one horrendous dream. And it was minutes afterwards, before it all sunk in, that what had happened had happened.
By the way, officials really didn't need the autopsy to know the drugs had played a part in Simpson's eventual death. 2 empty tubes of amphetamines plus a half-full tube were found in the rear pocket of his racing jersey. Simpson's death was a contributing factor to the introduction of mandatory testing for performance-enhancing drugs in cycling. All right, folks, time to take another break. When we return, we jump into the Philly Sports Spotlight Time Machine to get our groove on Philadelphia Eagles style.